Hi, I'm John Sarakis with the Digital Mastermind. You're listening to The Climb. This is where agency owners and leaders tune in to get growth tips and strategies for growing their businesses. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Climb, episode number 15, where today we're going to talk about surviving a recession. Our guests today have had their agency for over 25 years. It's a duo, a couple, and we're going to chat with them about what it's going to take to potentially survive what we're going through right now. Dave, what do you think about surviving past recessions? Do you have any experience with past recessions yourself, other than starting your agency in it, of course?
I mean, other than 2008, not really. I mean, I haven't even been in the, workforce for 25 years. So, I mean, that's quite the history.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. That 25 years is, first of all, a quarter century, right? Or that's pretty
it's
impressive.
a quarter century. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
You know, I know, so from some other people in the ad and agency space, I think it was in the 90s, maybe in the 80s and the 90s, there was a law that was changed based on like taxing services. And this may have only been in Florida or whatever state they were talking about. And that essentially killed the agency business, down here. I'm pretty sure it might have just been in Florida where they were taxing services. And this was like a short amount of time. So I know that was an issue. But I know in the 90s, there were a lot of agencies that had to survive, some of the recessions that went on or some of the changes. So I'm interested because they went through 9/11 and they went through, obviously, the 2008 crash that went. And they're potentially in a recession-proof business, but I'd like to see, all right, were they always in that space? Are there any tips that they can, offer? And see if there's any value that we can get from that conversation.
Even on the non-recession aspect, like how did they make the pivot? Because in 1995, there's no such thing as digital marketing, or it's very different than what it means today. Because I mean, in 1995, I was asking Jeeves, I think.
Asking Jeeves.
Yeah. Lycos, maybe.
Lycos, yeah, that's the one with the dog, right?
Yeah.
Like the.
So I just want to know. I'd like to know at what point did they see the transition, and how did they transition, or are they just a classic marketing agency?
No, from what I know, based on what our researchers provided, they started in 96, the dawn of the internet, right? The birth of it, and from there they essentially formed their agency. So, I mean, trying to get some people to spend money at that time just on a website alone was very difficult because people just, oh man, Yellow Pages, that's how we make our money. This thing's a trend or a fad.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. If they're going off past experiences, why would they think that this thing?
Somebody out there was going, man, GeoCities is the future. You got to get on that GeoCities.
GeoCities, yeah, GeoCities. Yeah, there was a bunch of those. Home something. There was another one, Homesteader, something like that.
Home site.
Home sites, that's what it was. Yeah, home sites and all the flash sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they probably have some tales to talk with that. But right now, based on what we're seeing, we're potentially in a depression, which is much more severe than a recession. I don't even know exactly what that definition is, but I know it's worse, right? It's bad. And if we're going to, I think the last time the government was in a recession, or a depression rather, was in the 20s, the one in 1929. So that was years to get out of that. And granted, just our last recession, that was pretty deep. That took years to recover from that. And there's also the psychological things that happen to people. And everybody's saying, yeah, the most important thing to do, is to continually market. Yeah, I believe all those things, but it's also convincing others that that's the case. More people that are continually focused on just their production, and we talked with some past guests, going into their turtle shell and hiding, essentially.
Right. You can't hide lack of demand. And that's really what it comes down to, is when the buying populace stops buying because of fear, the gears of
in economy.
business, of the economy just grind to a halt.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. When people aren't buying something, you can't sell something. And there's certain facets that are just shriveling up. And granted, doesn't mean they're completely gone, they're dying, but they're just not going to be consuming. In fact, the space that we're in is so saturated to begin with. I think there could be a positive culling that happens where not all these people that are continually rushing into this space are going to potentially look at other things that they could do rather than just being, oh man, I hate saying it this way, but I just remember this it fleas on a dog. This is how a realtor explained the last crash to me. I said, what do you think about all the realtors that aren't able to sell houses? And this was a guy similar to the people that we're going to talk to today that had been doing this for like 30 plus years. He said, they're fleas on a dog. He said, yeah. He said, that's all it is. They don't belong there if you can't survive, whatever the market's going to throw at you in the worst possible states. He said, it's only the best that survive. And to this day, he went through that process, switched over to foreclosures and that whole space. And when I say a market dominator, when I met him, he had 3 cars. Now he has 12. So just one of those things that always sticks with me. Yeah, when it gets bad, it's a lot of the other people are going to look for other things. Their focus is going to be elsewhere. You keep continuing what you're doing, adapt to the situation that's in front of you. And this doesn't mean don't be sympathetic or, empathetic based on what's going on. It's just, how can you still add value to your market and succeed?
So the title of your book, from what I'm hearing, is going to be How to Add 6 Cars During a Recession.
I love cars, not that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I really think that all these steps and the results of what's going to happen in this recession or depression, whatever it is, has been laid down during the good times. So, we've talked about this now in a couple episodes in a row. How much debt do you have as a business? How much access to cash flow do you have? The ones that were treating lines of credit and bank loans as this never-ending spigot in the good times, man, they got a rude awakening coming. And it's not even going to be through their processes and procedures. It's going to be, those exterior things that are going to force those to shut down because credit's about to get tight. So, the businesses that are prepped and ready to go to survive this are the healthy ones during the good times. And I think that's the key stress is you have to be a good steward of business in the good times, not just the bad times.
Yeah, you can't be fast and loose, cowboyish, cowgirlish, super risky in this situation. Yeah, you always have to maintain a war chest of cash, right? You always have to have, efficiencies, which is really weird, though. This is what's really weird because the government is now saying, we're going to give you money if you don't let any of your staff go, which no matter what, there is, like I said, that psychological element of, like you and I were having a conversation the other day about how much we have saved in not going out and just eating at home. I love restaurants. I love the restaurant experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like how far $100 goes on food in your house when versus taking that out to maybe sometimes one meal at a restaurant. Okay, so those things are changing now. A lot of people are going to see that. Sure, there will be a little bit bust when everybody's like, hey, you can go outside and play and see your friends, but I think that's still going to be there. Like, hey, remember how much money we saved when we just went to the grocery store? Like all those little conversations and nuances and all these different things are going to have dramatic effects, for years to come.
I feel closer today to my grandfather than I probably ever have. And I think the American psyche is going to look back because, we have a generation not too long ago that actually lived through the 1920s. They experienced nothing. I mean, my grandfather had a victory garden. You know what a victory garden is?
No.
After World War II, during World War II, the government encouraged people to create a victory garden because the food supply was so strained and they had to send so much food to the troops, there was food shortages.
Right.
Well, by the end of the war, the American people were creating more food in tons through their victory gardens than the large agricultural operations.
This is exactly what I'm talking about right there. Yeah, and
Yeah,
how and what impact did that have on And granted, the government then started bolstering up agriculture and whatnot. So I'm sure that
sure.
had a factor into it. But yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about.
But I remember going to my grandfather, and he has a whole pantry full of like green beans, tomatoes, like canned this, canned that. I mean, and I always, as a kid of the, being raised really in the '90s, going, why is Grandpa, storing all this? You can just go to the store and get it, And then my dad and my parents had that mindset because they didn't really have the want, right? They always had it. They always
Hmm.
had it. Anything they want. And so did we, and I think what we're about to see is a little bit of a return to, hey, I've already, how many posts I've seen on Facebook about people starting their own garden right now?
It's funny you mention that. My wife, we eat a lot of green onions, and she's now growing all these green onions. I don't
I'm
even, yeah.
I'm growing I just planted 14 spaghetti squash seeds that I started in a paper towel a week ago, yesterday. And I've got peppers that I'm growing. Like I haven't grown anything in a long time, but
So think
like, why
about this
not?
garden. So companies now are going to take the things that they've been outsourcing and they're going to figure out how to do a lot of that work internally. So whether it's going to be design, they're probably going to settle for less, right? With their current programs, or they're just going to say, all right, I'm just going to buy the Adobe license. I'm going to take a class and then I'm going to do those things on my own. So there's a lot of this, brain thinking and a lot of these little services that they've shopped out, and those are going to be gone and those are going to be cut. So it's going to be up to people to figure out, okay, how can I add the most value and up my game? You cannot be a bottom dweller.
And I think we've got to go back to a mindset of fixing it might be worth it and not just throw it away and buy a new one.
Yeah.
Because we've done that for the last quarter century of just throw it away, buy a new one. Now, hey, let's fix it. Let's keep what we got. Let's make sure we can keep this going. I see this experience changing the American experience and the world experience for the better, honestly. And I think it's going to make stronger communities, stronger families. I mean, there are definitely going to be stories of divorces and bad stories come out of it. And
Sure.
I don't know what I was listening to last night, but I heard domestic violence they're seeing
Yep.
those shoot through the roof in some instances.
And there's
And
code words you can use at pharmacies and whatnot, to escape. Yeah, it's really
there's
sad.
plenty of bad, but there's going
Yeah.
to be a lot of good that comes out of this too. And there's going to
Yep.
be a lot of just a lot more interesting. I mean, we're hearing stories about how just the general pollution in the air has dramatically dropped.
Yeah, the
Just
waters
from
in Venice are clean for the
yeah,
first time,
just from 2 weeks.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they said, hey, you can go out tomorrow and everything's back to normal, I'm still going to let these spaghetti squash grow and see what they do. And if they work out, I'm going to go plant some other shit.
So the title of your book would be "Let the Spaghetti Squash Grow" by
Yeah,
Dave McGraw.
right.
But I think the garden's a really good parallel to what's going to happen in our economy and people having things that last longer, and also the connectivity. I was speaking with an attorney just last night, and he said that the best thing I've got from all this is the amount of time I've had to spend with my son
Right.
and the memories his son is going to have based on, why daddy was skateboarding around the block with me.
Yeah.
He didn't know anything was wrong. He's been doing this, every day now for, like a month and a half or what, however long we've been going on, where it was like, optional to
I
work from home.
feel so blessed to be able to have this time at home with Emma. I mean, perfect time. She's 6 months old. I mean, she sounds like she's talking a lot, but it's just all, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, to be able to have that, because I'd typically be at the office. So I feel really blessed for that. I think there's going to be a lot of good for that. But then taking it back to a digital marketing mindset, how many times over the last 10 years have you worked with a brand that just said, let's throw away this website and do a brand new one?
Yeah, multiple times.
It happened all the time. I mean, we have one client that we're on their 5th website. And I think we might be pivoting to a time where we're going to do a lot more improvement and incremental changes and not wholesale changes and not wholesale throwaway websites and stuff. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how how it happens. I mean, these guys, when they started their business in 1996, like, I wonder what they thought they would be doing. And when I started Oyoba, I thought I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be in business for 10 years. And now we're here 10 years, and I'm like, I can't believe we made it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my thought was always to be long term, but yeah, to see what that looks like is so fleeting.
So
Where you're just
impossible.
you're focusing on that one moment. But I guess that kind of goes into long term survival planning. I once had there's no lets. They make the Kettle One. I had the opportunity to sit down with their marketing director. I don't know 3 or 4 years ago, and he said, what are some of the oldest American companies that that you work with or experience with? And I started thinking, I was like, you think of like Ford and some things like that, right? That are, I don't know, 100 or so years old. He said, Nolet's is a 400 and something year old company. He said, so you guys plan in months and quarters. We plan in decades.
Right.
So when you have that type of long-term planning, survival is, not a question. You're definitely going to survive. It's just your ability just to adapt within that time period. And
You
that
also
had
make
like
alcohol. I mean,
what's that?
alcohol's never going out of demand.
But here's the thing. They had to pivot and they never made vodka.
Prohibition. Oh, okay.
Yeah, prohibition didn't affect them. That was a stupid thing we did in the United States. And I'm not
Right.
like advocating alcohol drinking by any means, but it just is what
Right.
it is. But they had to pivot because their sales were dwindling and they moved over into vodka. And there was a conversation they had with it's a family run company. The CEO, I think he still might be the CEO, that said to the marketing director, he said, hey, look, he's like, I know he was there for 2 weeks. And that's the other cool thing, that people are there for like lifetimes. He said, I'm going to make a change here, and either you're going to be out of a job because we're no longer going to be in business. This was their most detrimental time, and they're planning in decades kind of scenario. He said, you're going to have a job for the rest of your life. And it worked out. It was one of those things, because literally looking back into history, they could see like, all right, these are all the changes that have happened in this space. This is what potentially the future is going to look like. And the guy has had a job,
Sure.
for the rest of his life. And it's they're a fantastic spirit company. So that's something I think now a lot of companies are looking internally, right? And they can begin that type of planning if they have the faculties and the willingness to survive.
So that reminds me of my trip to England and being in a pub that was older than the country that I'm from.
That's
Like
exactly how it was. 400 years. It's older than, the United States. Right.
so it was so humbling to just think that somebody was sitting here drinking a beer before my country even like became a country. Before Christopher Columbus even landed. It was insane.
It could have been troops that, potentially shot against your ancestors.
Right.
Were in there, having a brewski.
Yeah, celebrating. Got them old McGraws.
Speak of celebrating, let's go ahead and let our two fantastic guests on here from Imagine, Brett Cohen and Bill Gadless. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
All right. Before we get into everything, I'd like to give listeners an overview of your client. We kind of combined this one for you guys. If there's anything else that is inaccurate you want to add, feel free to let me know. Both of you guys are New Englanders, right outside of Boston, correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Dave's from there too. He's actually a little quick side note. He's head of the fan club in Jacksonville for the Patriots. Not sure if you guys are fans.
We were. I was, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm a Tampa fan, man. So this all works out.
Oh, yeah,
Brett, you went to Bridgewater State University, left with a communications degree, and then you later formed an agency. But then you met Bill, right? And then that's when you two went ahead and formed what today is Imagine, correct?
It's pretty close. Bill had his own agency going, and I had a less of an agency and more of a print and graphic design shop. And we met kind of by chance one day and became friends. And then I did some work for him, and then we kind of joined forces. That's a whole other story.
Got it.
That's a whole other podcast.
All right, we'll save one for next time. All right, and then that's essentially 25 years ago, and now you guys have an agency with over 80 employees, and you focus on healthcare and life sciences, and then as a digital marketing and communications partner.
Yeah, not quite 80, but the rest of it's right.
Got it. All right, got to fire a researcher. That's what they came up with. All right, and quick question: as this applies to your agency, are you guys iPhone or Android, or actually Mac or PC?
Almost all Apple at this point.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'd say Mac and iPhone.
Email, Office 365, Gmail, something else.
Gmail.
Apparently everybody is. And then I guess for each of you, real quick, what is the most used app on your phone? We'll start with you, Brett.
I'd probably say Slack.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, I'd say Slack and LinkedIn, other than email, obviously, and texting, but Slack and LinkedIn.
All right, right on. All right, so I want to jump right into it. So you guys started 25 years ago, and then you've seen a recession or two. So based on what you're currently seeing, like how bad do you think this is going to get? What are your guts telling you?
Let me go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. I think it's really bad right now. So not just going to get bad. I don't know that it can get much worse. It's to me more. It's more now of a question of how long it lasts. Because it's probably about as bad as it could get right now. 6-7 million jobless claims this morning just for last week. 10 million over the past 2 weeks. So I think we're almost in as bad of a position as the country could possibly be in. So how long will it last? My kind of this is all gut feeling. I'm not an economist. I take in a lot of news. I've kind of observed how our business goes over the years. And I think I have optimism that we will start to see a little bit of a reemergence of our clients and our business being in healthcare and life sciences. And because we're in digital, I think we'll start to see that after an initial shock of maybe a couple months. But I do think other industries and other services and other companies are going to lag a little bit behind that. So, I think overall, my gut feeling is this thing is going to go at least a few months of kind of a lock. And I feel a little optimistic that we, because of the industries we're in, will at least slightly reemerge from that ahead of that, if that makes sense.
It does. Did you guys see any impact based on this with clients potentially pulling down or pulling back projects or, slimming budgets a bit?
Brett?
Yeah, I am. I think one of the things, because we've been through this, the first time, September 11th,
yeah,
that was more attuned to a disaster like this. And then we've been through downturns, recessions, election cycles. So we've kind of been able to identify some key indicators that Bill and I talked about, right from the beginning that we were going to watch for. And, and those are the things that we're kind of keeping an eye on daily. So it's things like, projects that were like on the table, ready to be signed. If that either stops or slows down, that's an indicator. Clients putting projects that are already happening on hold, that's an indicator. Clients, kind of not giving us any indication, but missing scheduled calls and just disappearing is an indicator. Slow pay is an indicator. And I think we had one other one on our
client layoffs.
Client layoffs, yeah. Yep. So, yeah, so we kind of, have been watching everything, and, we've definitely seen a little bit of it all so far. And, it unfolds daily. So we're literally having conversations on a daily basis on different scenarios that are kind of affecting us right now.
One note on the slow payments one, even not just seeing that and observing it, but clients giving you the heads up that there's going to be slow payments. So we've had a couple of those in the past couple of days.
When 9/11 happened, what essentially is that what helped you build this framework, and what did you do in 9/11?
Bill, we're lucky that both Bill and I kind of came from marketing backgrounds. So, and I think, John, you and I talked about this when we kind of spent some time together in New Orleans, but
Yeah.
we were a marketing company kind of from the get-go. It wasn't like traditional agencies where there might be a designer and a developer who get together or, you know, and then build a business. We had no experience, very little technically or creatively, other than just stuff we did ourselves. So we were a marketing company first, and our first hire was someone to do outbound marketing. So because we were marketers, you know, and around 2001 was the first phase of kind of websites. Okay, let's build a website. And then everybody did that, you know, web 1.0 where they had a website. And then, you know, I think at the time we had ramped up and had like 22 people, and then business just stopped. So because we were a marketing company at heart, we just kind of pivoted very quickly and figured out what people would buy. And they weren't buying new websites, but they were interested in driving traffic. So we literally just in a day just started to try to sell search engine marketing, you know, and back then it was pretty easy to win, you know, with all the different search engines. There was a lot of on-page stuff you could do. So we kind of taught ourselves quickly, and we went out and sold that for a year and got some good clients. So, you know, we definitely, you know, held on to people too long, burned a lot of money, but we were able to get through it because we were able to pivot so quickly with our marketing and get clients, you know, finding the clients that will spend, because, you know, regardless of the economy, there's always some sector that's spending money, you know, and we've seen that through all the downturns.
I think those are great points. Yeah, and that's something. But what we're seeing now is there's, you know, and granted, I guess it was then there was a contraction based on like everybody shriveling up, and this seems like it's changing behaviors, right? Whereas maybe the one in 9/11 didn't. Like everybody's essentially going, they're saving money internally, right, in their houses, and they're doing different things. There's also a contraction, I think, based on the way that people have office space. So we're going to see dramatic changes there. And I know you guys aren't economists, but that's something I guess that's, you know, the pickle that I don't see anybody has an answer for. Like, what does that do long term, right?
Yeah, I was going to say to Bill's point about just this kind of ending and getting back to normal. You know, what is the new normal? Is it, you know, are there no more events like
Right.
the event we were at, or, you know, is it face masks? Is everyone going to just be operating in a mask society? You know, what's going to be different? Because it will be different, you know, moving forward. And I think all of us had a little bit of a wake up call with this and understanding where you are financially yourself and being prepared. I think people might hold back a little bit personally on their spending and get themselves in a much better prepared position for this to happen again, because, you know, the people that are prepared financially are probably, you know, really happy that they are. And the people that aren't are saying, you know, if and when we get through this, I'm going to change the way I do things. So I think, you know, we will get back to normal, but I think it'll be a new normal.
Yeah.
And there's those people that still, no matter how many crises they go through, still don't change behavior.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, I think that they're going to probably hit rock bottom with this one, because I think just to that, like the events, everybody's now doing these online events, which almost has no appeal to me. I really like meeting new people, and I don't know if there's like breakout rooms. And have you guys attended any of these? Where one of the biggest things I love about events, not only, I mean, the education's, you know, important, but I mean the networking, right? I love, you know, meeting people. Like that's how I met you, Brett, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys attended any of these that are based on, you know, your space?
No, not yet. I had one I was supposed to be a panelist on in Vegas next month that I think they're going to go virtual with that. So we'll see if I play a role there, but I haven't. And I think about, you know, I think events will be back. I mean, I really don't think we're going to live permanently under the fear of a pandemic. I just don't. So I think events will be back. I think the virtual working and you know, all the remote work and how we're doing this changes. And I have a bigger picture economic concern Not because I own any commercial real estate, but I think that's going to burst from this. No commercial landlord is being paid a dime right now, or residential landlord. So they're in trouble, and so they're not going to pay their mortgages. Even if they're very wealthy people, they have millions of dollars in mortgages on those commercial buildings. And so I worry about that as kind of the next bubble now to burst from this. And then, the banks have all been saying that they're all in great shape this time versus the financial crisis. But will that last? Because if everybody's defaulting on their mortgages, then are the banks in trouble? And then if the banks are in trouble, does that trigger another recession on top of this? So I have kind of macro concerns that are going to come out of the commercial real estate picture.
Well, I even think following after that is that when you don't have people going to office space, I mean, there's so many things connected to that, like Jimmy John's. I mean, Jimmy John's, delivery, there's so many food expenses just because you're at an office and you're going out to lunch or ordering lunch, or that all goes away. I mean, John and I were just talking about how much money we've saved working from home these past 3 weeks. That's money out of the economy. And
our coffee expense in our office is huge. I feel bad for the guy that comes in and cleans every Wednesday. He's nothing to clean now. We have a shredding service. I mean, there's so many, it's a good point. There's so many services connected to our office too. Shredding, we have a shredding company that monthly, there is a whole bunch of stuff, and there is a huge ripple effect, that we'll see. But, that's kind of after we get through this.
Sure.
It's getting through it, which is the challenge at hand at the moment. I don't know if you guys have seen it in your agency, but we're definitely, we see it, and we're being, very proactive.
Yeah, like you, we're just doing it on a daily basis, just acting and adapting as we can to whatever the normal is. Going back to 9/11, when you guys transitioned for a year, did you see a lot of agencies that weren't able to make it because they didn't pivot like you guys did?
It was so early back then that we didn't even really have many peers in the agency business. So it was still the Wild West. It was just a bunch of people building websites and doing SEO. Whereas today, we have a lot more true agency friends. And I've been in touch with a lot of them, but no, back then it wasn't, we couldn't really get a pulse.
And it was coming off the bubble, the dotcom bubble. Right. So there was a lot of agencies, with funding, and, Bill and I used to go to their open houses in Boston and see 50,000 square feet of built out space with no employees. And, so a lot of them disappeared or merged, or got swallowed up by other companies. But, we were so heads down at the time, we were just really focused on ourselves. We weren't even worrying about what anyone else was doing. We weren't even aware of it. We were just, plowing through our own kind of issues and trying to get business.
Yeah, because I think in the industry what's going to happen is there's going to be tons of acquisitions and mergers based on companies that made big bets, last year, where they're cash poor now, that have a ton of assets and resources that other companies are going to want to acquire.
For sure.
So I think it's being able to, identify that. And granted, it's a mutual thing. It's not a shark eating a minnow at that point. It's just, all right, how do we, come together and, build something greater than you had before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even think we're even, in that mindset at the moment. We're in the mindset of, communicating with our clients and making sure the projects that we have, in play are going to keep moving, and, trying to get the ones that are on the table to close. We're not even, thinking about what happens after. We're literally, it's just my opinion, at least I'm not,
That's what I'm here for.
How much of your work, did you guys do any remote work, prior to this, or?
Yeah.
About half, I think.
Yeah, we're probably, a little less than half of our people are remote. And because we're up in the Northeast, we've had for a few years kind of a snow day plan anyway, where when it snows a little bit, people kind of want to work from home anyway, instead of sitting in traffic for hours. So everybody was prepared. Like going remote for us was literally turn it on. Okay, we're all remote today. I think there was very little setup for anybody, unless, I don't even know if there was any setup at all. Maybe one or two people needed some help, or, we had to maybe pull, a printer out to give to somebody, or, it was pretty seamless for us because we had already kind of had that in place.
And do you anticipate that changing after this for you personally?
It's a good question because, the office space that we have 8,000 square feet and our lease is up in August. So the timing is kind of right. I think our initial plan was to renew because I think the people that, do work there like going there and like that environment. So I don't think we've decided one way or the other. I think, the economy and the recovery will really paint that picture for us. More than us not, deciding now and saying, hey, we don't need that expense.
Sure.
I think, we see a lot of value in having it. There's just certain things that you get relationship-wise from having that environment versus not having it. But
and they miss it. It's not just us wanting it. The employees are on Slack saying they miss having lunch together and things like that. So those who aren't in the office, they're fine working remote, but those that have been in the office are missing it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would be one of those people. Yeah, I enjoy going to an office.
Mm-hmm.
I do not enjoy working from home. I like interacting that way. So yeah, that's something that's really important to me. Now, in so far as you said you have half distributed and your other half going to your office right now.
About that.
Not right now. Everybody's remote right now.
No, okay.
Our office is technically closed.
Okay, and then just for my thought, is Massachusetts completely locked down like everywhere else? Or
yeah,
okay,
non-essential.
Yeah. Non-essential. All right, yeah, it's essentially what they did here in Florida. But golf courses are still open, and that's important. That's a social distancing
essential in
sport.
Florida.
Yeah, it's essential. Yeah, there's a lot of retirees down here. Yeah, and I'm lucky enough to be one of those golfers. So I guess another question, you guys have been doing this for 25 years. Like, how do you maintain a strong working relationship? You guys are on good terms. That's a long time for a partnership. Marriages barely last, a few years lately.
Yeah. I think Bill would say that, he likes the fact that I'm probably an expert at relationships. So I manage it. No, I think the key, and it's a good question because a lot of times when I go to some of these events, people talk about partnerships, and one of the, phrases stuck out, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership,
Yep.
And,
heard that.
we've had it, been getting along. I'm not saying that, Bill's never wanted to scrape my eyes out because he has, maybe a handful of times, but
never,
I think
never vice versa though.
No, never. No, because I would scrape your eyes out if I really wanted to. I think for us, the key has been that we really kind of don't do the same things at all. So there's not a lot of overlap on kind of what we like to do and what we're kind of responsible to do for the business. So, generally speaking, times have been good. So it's easy to, not easy, but it's a lot easier to run a company when things are good versus when things are bad. You kind of, people tend to start pointing fingers, but I think we just kind of each do our own thing and bounce things off each other when needed, but there's not a lot of overlap on what we do.
And then I think there's another aspect of it that is more of a general relationship thing. And I really believe that this has been key. I think if you can truly not put your own benefit ahead of the bigger picture, I think relationships and partnerships work. As we go into this one right now, Brett and I are going to have to take cuts on what we pull out of the company. I don't care if I have to dip into my savings. I don't want to. But I'll take what it takes for me to live and pay my bills. And I'm never worried about my own well-being ahead of the bigger picture interest. I'll caveat that by saying, there could be layoffs, and we might get into that later, in the interest of the company on a whole, not in the interest of Bill and Brett, but in the interest of Imagine sustaining as an entity. There could be layoffs that will be perceived as Bill as Brett probably sustaining themselves. But I think if you can literally sacrifice your own benefit and not put yourself first, it works. And I know I've done that. I know that, and so is Brett. When the two of us are debating things, never is it because I want this and I want that and you want this. It's disagreeing philosophically on things, but never once have we had a single disagreement about, but I want this and you want that. And aside from just wanting, even agreeing on things, the other thing is when we don't even agree philosophically, I think we both have been willing almost across the board to say, I don't care how strongly I feel about that thing, I'm willing to try it your way. And what's the worst thing that can happen? So neither of us ever just dig our heels in so far that there's ever been a stalemate and weak, because we're both willing to say, whatever, maybe I'm wrong. Let's try it the way you're saying.
What I'm hearing there is something that Dave and I, we haven't been partners that long. We've known each other for quite some time, is that you guys solve and run with logic. It's just, all right, what is the most logical thing to do here? And it's all right, if you're going to concede, and the other, all right, let's see what happens. And I joke and tell people that's what my gravestone will say. All right, let's see what happens, because it's just, at the end of the day, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? And I think the other thing too is not making everything personal or emotional, because that is just a deal killer. So, all right, sounds like we're on the right track there.
And we
also think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I also think that for my personal mindset, there's David McGraw, the owner, and David McGraw, the employee. And the employee is doing the best thing for the company. And then after all that is said and done and that's working well, then the owner gets the benefit. I know it's the same person, but when I'm sitting in this seat, I am operations.
Right.
I'm trying to operate the business as best as possible. And I'm not stepping on John's sales feet, because I'm not talking to John, the owner. I'm talking to John, the head of sales. And that's how we have to operate, and take your ownership mindset out of it until the end of the day. And that's when you get to celebrate your success or your failures.
Yeah, it's a good point. The other thing I'll say is, just to get into the specifics, like we have a lot of different strengths and features, but we know what a couple of those big ones are. Like for instance, I work a lot on instinct. I'm a salesman, right? So a lot of what I do is based on emotion, feeling, just my impulses. And I'm not saying that's how we make decisions across the board, but that's kind of how I think. Whereas Brett is a lot more about the data and the facts. And I'm not dumb enough to think that my instincts should trump facts and data that are in the books. So the fact that I know that, and yet at the same time, Brett knows that there's a certain value in instincts. And as the salesperson who's more on the front lines of the market and feeling out and knowing things people are saying directly to us and stuff, that there is a certain level of instinct that comes out of that isn't data driven. So I think we both respect that aspect about each other. But again, I recognize I'm a salesman, and a lot of what I do is emotional. And so I have to respect the data that he puts in front of me from his side of the business.
Do you have a situation where your instinct trumped data and it was right?
I think I wouldn't say that it's usually debate, more like, for instance, I've pushed over the years for us to become an agency focused on healthcare and life sciences. I didn't base that on a study that we did. And Brett, and it wasn't my own decision. It was more because I'm the guy that kind of leads our sales and marketing. That was my influence, and Brett kind of hearing from me on a regular basis that this is the direction we should go in, and feeling that and seeing the results in our clients and all that. So it's more like that. It's more that, I kind of will push decisions like that based on my feeling of the market and instincts that way. But it's, that's a case where Brett's not going to come back to me with a presentation on data on why we shouldn't do that. So on day-to-day decisions that are more financial and things like that, we're not using my instincts for those decisions ever. It's more kind of bigger picture market decisions, if that makes sense.
And I think that there's probably never been anything that was so critical that we were, at odds between data and instinct that we could actually later on go back and point to and say, see, I was right about that, or you were right. So to answer your question, I would say there's probably tons of things where the instinct was right and tons of things where the data was right. But they weren't significant enough to be, measurable or charted, to go back and look at and say, I was right. I think both of us don't care who's right as long as it's right.
Yeah.
How often do you guys have like set, do you do like quarterly meetings? Do you guys do like a weekly call to check in based on, managing the company?
He and I talk all day, every day, on and off. If we're not talking, we're texting at 7, 8, 9 p.m. So it's kind of a mix of always, but not really scheduled.
And because I'm down in South Florida now too, we have lunch together before this.
A few times a week before
probably,
this.
Yeah, a couple of times a week. So, we'll chat, but we're always in communication. There's never it's not that formal between me and him.
Right, because you're always communicating at that point, so it's continually moving forward. It doesn't have to be. What about with your employees based on what's going on right now? Are you guys, how often the communications?
Yeah, so right now, as soon as this happened, we set a standing meeting on Monday morning with the whole company, just to kind of give them an update of what's going on and what we're seeing and our key indicators, what's happening. And then we have kind of as needed meetings with the management team. So if there's some, big discussion, we'll get everyone together and then we'll present a kind of unified plan to the rest of the company. But I'm meeting with each individual manager of the different departments we have on a weekly basis anyway, just to kind of not, COVID-19 related, just in general. I always do that. So, but right now for this specifically, we do have a standing company meeting once every Monday morning.
And you mentioned at what we'll call the 9/11 recession, you held on to people for too long, but you eventually did lay off people in that time?
I don't think we laid off people. I think we held on to people until kind of business came back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then when we looked at the end of the year, we were like, we probably shouldn't have held on to people. I mean, we had 22 people at the time. You have to remember that this is like dotcom boom, and you were just scraping to find anybody with any type of talent. And that's the same thing we were doing at the time. So, there wasn't a lot of people with a lot of experience back then. So we held on. We had new offices, we had all this furniture, and we just kind of, people just weren't very productive because we didn't have enough work, but we held on to them. And I don't think we laid off because of that. I think we just kind of, got busier, in the next few years. But we definitely cost us money holding on to people.
I think 08 and 09 was a better example of us being a little bit more mature of a business and a harsher recession. At that time, we had very few layoffs. Again, we did lay off maybe 2 people. One of them, I think, was part-time. And then within probably 8 weeks, we were either rehiring. One of them couldn't come back. I think she had a baby or something. And then the other one came back. So we fared pretty well through that one too. Again, largely because of what we do and because of a focus on healthcare.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, and what's different this time, and this was kind of in our first initial discussions and discussions with the company and the management team, is what's different this time versus all the other times is what's happening. you know the cause, you had a little bit of warning, you could see, like you understand what's happening, where previously, you didn't, it just kind of happened and you didn't really know that it was even happening until it was almost too late, so I think we have a little bit more warning, and at least, I don't want to say fortunate, but at least we kind of understand that we're in it and we understand how bad it's going to be. So it helps you make decisions when you understand. I think, like I said, in the past, you never really knew
Right.
how bad it was going to be, how deep it was going to go, how long. So, in those times we were always like, okay, we got those 3 projects and we think they're going to come in, and hopefully they come in, and, a day turns into a week turns into a month turns into 3 months. And it's just different this time.
It's like as if we have more control of what's happening.
We have control. We don't have control to make it better for the world, but at least we have control because you know how bad it is. So when you know how bad it is and that it's going to last a while, you can make business decisions, based on that, versus when you don't really know. Like usually for us around elections, we get hit too. Every election cycle we get hit. Whether it's, a second term for somebody or a brand new election where there's going to be a new president. We're always slow around elections. People don't, buy, or they hold off. So
Uncertainty.
There's the uncertainty of the market.
Right. So we plan, accordingly, and we watch, but we never really know what's going to happen.
That's interesting that affects your business, the uncertainty side. But I guess it makes sense in your space.
And we're not immune. I mean, we've always, been so happy that we're in probably the most recession-proof industry you could be in, which is healthcare, but definitely not immune. Even to elections, like Brett's talking about. There's a lot of talk of the pharmaceutical industry being under pricing pressure. On both sides of the political aisle. So that's, that could impact them around election time. Right now, healthcare is taking a hit in a number of ways, unless you are specifically related to the crisis. Healthcare is suffering. Biotech, pharmaceutical, clinical trials are held up. People can't go into laboratories. Funding is being held up. So VCs aren't investing in anybody that's not directly tied to the crisis. So even our industry, which again, I do have confidence will reemerge sooner than others, is taking a hit.
Yeah, I was going to actually get into that. Now I'm happy you clarified that. So those, mechanical wheels in that market aren't moving either.
Right. They are in, certain markets are. Obviously, if you're in diagnostics, if you're creating a vaccine or treatment for COVID specifically, we also just scheduled a webinar for the end of this month to the telehealth industry. That's a really hot sector. So we're being very proactive in terms of honing in on some of the sectors that are really hot because of the crisis. But others are definitely stalled like the rest of the country.
Have you seen an uptick in the work that you've been able to sell based on the communications necessary just for coronavirus?
No, we're addressing it. So we're putting out messages, just an email blast an hour before this right now to our leads database about that and how you need to keep communicating, and even communicating in new virtual ways that you might not have. But I was even reluctant to send that yet because I feel like we're still, I feel that we're in the freeze. We're in the shock. I put up an infographic the other day that I made where my perception of what the phases are that a business or a marketer goes through when a crisis like this hits. And the first phase is shock. It's information overload. It's freezing. It's no productivity. And that shock could be as little as a week. I think that was us. We were in the shock for like a week and then we started reacting. But I think in the bigger picture, the shock is here for weeks. And that's why I don't even expect to get any sort of, I mean, I got 14 respondents to our webinar already in a day, but in terms of trying to promote any services, I feel like it's going to be a couple of weeks of really not getting much response to marketing messages. Now we're very sales centric too. Our outbound people that do lead gen and are on the phone and emailing prospects directly and all that, they're continuing to set up appointments every week, at least a few new ones a week. So that's good. We still have activity. I just think it's not going to go much further than activity for at least a few weeks.
God bless them. They're still booking appointments in this.
For sure.
Wow, that's gnarly.
Almost every day we get at least one new lead who's at least interested in talking to us. An RFP, an RFP come in 2 days ago. But again, does that mean that the CFO and CEO aren't behind closed doors right now, planning to cut all spending? Not necessarily. So we got to temper our perception of activity a bit and not think that that means that money is going to be spent.
Yeah, we're dealing with, the people whose jobs it is to get, their message out there and market and new sales. So they're continuing to do their job. They're probably, like Bill said, just not privy to, what the actual budget is for, or whether money will be released. But, if they're working, they're going to continually do their job, which is, come up with ideas, source vendors, get proposals, and take it as far as they can take it. So I think that's kind of, what Bill's talking about, is that we're definitely seeing opportunity, but we know we have a long sales cycle anyway. So we know that, we're going to chase it all down, but we also know that, we could do everything perfect. And then when it gets to the CFO or CEO, it could say, hey, we're not buying anything yet.
And so the way we view it is, keep our foot on the gas and keep generating that activity and keep generating those conversations, because they will unfreeze. And whether that's in a month or 2 or 6, I hope not, we'll be right there with all of these conversations. So we're continuing to hit it as hard as we possibly can during this.
I love hearing that. I know a lot of people are saying don't sell right now. And I just wrote a blog post last week where I said, the options essentially are you could pull over and put the hazards on, or, we're in the storm. You can just be careful and, keep driving. Right. And I think that sounds like what you guys are doing.
And be thoughtful in your communications. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day, and I had a meeting this morning with our whole sales department. And I said, I think it's crazy to be sending out sales messages that don't acknowledge what's going on to some extent and come across as though it's just business as usual. Mm-hmm. When I receive those right now, I'm a little offended by it. It feels very automated. It doesn't feel human and authentic at all. So, our messages, I feel that in your communications, even if you don't have an angle per se that's related to the crisis, acknowledge it. Say, hey, I hope you're doing well through this. I just wanted to reach out and discuss this in a very human way versus continuing the automated drip campaigns that pretend nothing's going on. I find that to be probably not very wise.
Yeah, I don't think that's tactful. And based on the people that are taking those meetings, this is something I believe is people still want to work. They still have these things if they're in a procurement department, or they have this other problem that they need to solve, that those things aren't stopping. And I think it's more of a hindrance, and it's, slowing down the other, mechanisms in the economy where we don't do those activities, because that's still something that's functional.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think, to your point, you have to be offensive, not offensive, but offensive. You can't, you got to outmaneuver kind of what's happening and strike first, or at least get out there. You can't just sit in a corner and wait for your enemies to surround you. And
right now is the time to grow market share. It's the companies that are out there that are hustling. They're going to grow their market share while the other ones shrink or disappear.
If they do it in a thoughtful way. Yeah.
Right. And, the other thing that comes out of this, I'm seeing it firsthand. It's a good thing and it's bad. I can usually say that Brett and I are in a position where, when you first start early on in a business, right, you're too tactical, your head's down, you're a technician and you're not working on your business, right? So Brett and I have been in this long enough that I think we've been able to become more strategic. He and I aren't just heads down tactics all day, every day. But what I'll tell you is when something like this hits, it forces you to employ some tactics that maybe suffered and weren't going on because you were being strategic. So right now, I mean, both of us, I'm speaking on over on my sales and marketing side, I have them written on a wall next to me to my left here. I've got about 6 things that are critical and high value for us that are being employed rapidly right now that otherwise wouldn't have even, maybe they were going to be long range things that we would have gotten to because I had other priorities that were bigger picture. So you definitely come out of this, I think, almost across the board, you come out of these things better because you employed some things that you really had to do that otherwise might not have gotten done.
Can you share any of those with us?
Like for instance, attacking a couple of these key markets, that would be one.
Mm-hmm.
I know these were markets, these weren't just identified now. There's a couple of sectors of our markets that I know were high value for us, that we would maybe have planned, hey, let's do some more content to them over the next few months. Let's plan a webinar or something to them at some point. That now it's not just over the next few months, it's let's right now do these things that we otherwise weren't going to get done. Another one would be, so we have a few different business units at Imagine. We build websites, we do digital marketing, we do ongoing client services, right? Brett and I just hired at the time that this whole thing started, salespeople to attack those individual business units that weren't necessarily getting their own dedicated sales effort. Some of that didn't happen as a result of this crisis, but one did. We shifted someone over as a result of that. And again, that might not have happened as immediately. So there's a whole slew of things going on that otherwise maybe would have been back burner.
Yeah. Pain's a hell of a motivator.
Yeah, true.
And I find it interesting. So you're a sales guy and you built your sales force. How big is your sales force?
Small. So it's evolved. So we have a couple of people that do lead generation. It kind of consists of about research, day-to-day research that's just kind of identifying our target clients, the companies, contact names as they move around and all that. The people who are doing the outreach, then one person who actually does all the initial kind of engagement when we get a hot opportunity, because that's not a high volume, because we're usually doing pretty big ticket stuff. But then once it's a real opportunity, that sales team becomes like 5 or 6 people that are part of our pitch team when we've got a legitimate pitch. And those are people like our creative director and strategists who actually work with clients. They become part of the sales team when we have a strong opportunity to pitch.
I love that. So you've essentially distributed a model where you have like a hunter, right? Or multiple hunters that are, prospecting. And then what you're doing like cold email where you're in calls, I'm assuming.
Yeah, a lot of that, a mix of, and that mix has evolved a lot over the years. Years ago it was calling, primarily literally cold calling. So that's become a lot more cold emailing combined with LinkedIn engagement, combined with a few phone calls. We've actually picked up a little more on phone calls lately because we feel like nobody else does it. So it's a mix. LinkedIn's big for us, both engaging people on there and also emailing them. Again, very tactfully. So yeah, it's a whole slew of things supported by, kind of company email marketing campaigns as well.
Right. You have your own content machine essentially that you're feeding into with that.
Yeah, that might be a little generous, content machine, but yes, supported by, kind of email marketing at the corporate level as well.
Gotcha. Content cog. How about that?
Exactly.
As a part of it. And then are you directly involved in these sales processes?
Yeah. So when we get I'd say in a number of ways, I'm constantly driving, the markets that we want to shift to, companies, even right down to company size that we want to target, how much funding they should have, which industries are hot. That all comes from me, down to, how we're approaching leads and trying to generate their interest and everything. When we get a lead, our sales, the woman, Lauren, who does all of the engaging when we get a good opportunity, she and I are consulting all day, every day, just about specific opportunities and how we should approach it. If they sound like a good fit, we say no to a lot of opportunities that just don't seem like a good fit for us. So she and I are constantly evaluating that, qualifying the the opportunities, and then putting together, our pitches. And so that largely, again, comes from me in terms of the direction of how we want to take pitches and who we want to get involved in the team and which things we should show them to try and impress them and things like that. So I don't do any of the direct sales, but I'm involved in each step of the process.
And then where in, this is kind of for my own self needs, where in your life cycle did you step out of it more so where you had a team that could do it for you?
It's been quite a few years. I mean, I would say, I'm going to say that was probably as early as 2005 or 6, we hired like an official salesperson. We had some in the early days that just couldn't do it that well. And we didn't really hire, people that were going to be real professional salespeople back then. But then around 06 or so, we kind of decided, let's hire a salesperson. Let's get me out of it so that I can actually manage the sales and not just do all the sales. That was a very hard thing to do. As anyone knows, when you're the one that's been selling it all, it's hard to give it up. But I did. And
is it your idea or was that Brett's?
It was probably Brett pushing me to do it. It definitely was, with me having a hard time letting it go. But that was definitely with his pushing.
Got it. And then, so did you like formalize processes? Was it just somebody shadowing you?
Yeah, exactly. He shadowed me for a while. I then became the opposite, me kind of just joining him. And he was with us for at least a few years. We closed a lot of deals back then. And then, we've had a couple people since then, but yeah. And the process has transformed a lot because over the years, we've just consistently moved up the food chain. So our sales process has gone largely from high volume, lower ticket contracts to low volume, big ticket, much more comprehensive pitching, much more big agency like. I think that, and past couple of years especially, we kind of had our butts kicked about 2.5 years ago several times by big agencies who were outclassing us in the sales pitch process. Much bigger agencies bringing in teams and everything. And it was at that point that we realized we're going to have to step up to their level. So even though we're a small agency, I'd like to think we have a multi-million-dollar sales pitch going on out there right now for contracts that might only be $150,000. I think we're coming in with $1 million pitch. So that was what I kind of aspired to do. And I think we got there because it's gone well since then. So it's really just evolved so much every single year. But we're in a good place with it now if there were people to sell to.
No, I love hearing that. Yeah, that's something that I've never had luck building. We have account managers, but yeah, I've never had luck with bringing on salespeople. It's just, and I'm a person that takes a lot of accountability. I believe it's me, but then again, other people are like, no, those people were duds. So did you find that somebody that was trained in somewhere else in sales, or is that something that you nurtured internally?
We've gone through a few phases. And that first person was just a salesperson. He had come from selling like technology products. And then the others came organically. We weren't hiring and didn't have a job posted out there. Our next person that did it for a number of years is still with us, and he was a strategist. So he was much more kind of high-level consultant as opposed to salesperson. So it became a very consultative sale, which it still is today. And then now Lauren, who handles most of it for us now for probably about 6+ years, she is pure relationship. So she is like the queen of relationships. She doesn't meet or speak to a person that doesn't fall in love with her within seconds. And that's been huge for us. That doesn't mean she's not intelligent, and it doesn't mean she's not strategic, but her biggest strength is forming trust and rapport. And then that is augmented with the consultative aspect of the sale that's brought in by the other people that are part of it. So that's where we're at currently. And it's been a good mix.
I love it. It's a framework that, somebody could build into, somebody like myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Love that. All right. I know we're ending up toward the end of the call here. I want to give you guys some space here. If you guys had the ability to peddle or promote anything, this is your space to do it. So feel free. Not all at once. Anything you want to say.
This is the bill. It's the bill section.
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the few digital first agencies in healthcare and life sciences, and so in our industry, which is every aspect of the whole healthcare continuum, from biotechnology companies to pharma, hospitals, you name it, we touch every aspect of healthcare. They have been serviced primarily over the years by more traditional agencies. And Imagine is truly a digital first, we're digital natives. That's all we knew. And so it's a strength of ours in that we come in with that approach because we are living truly in a digital world. It's no longer just an aspect of marketing. It's marketing in a digital world. And so that's what we bring to our clients.
Wow, that's the best elevator pitch I think we've had on the show so far. Yeah, you're a consummate professional.
And I winged it.
I'd add something. Not
good enough for Brett. Listen to
no,
this.
But this has nothing to do with Imagine. I think it's more, advice for trying to get through this tough time especially for somebody that has a few people or just getting started or struggling is, do something even if it's wrong. Don't just sit back and do nothing. You have to move quickly and you have to be offensive, and don't be afraid to make tough, unpopular decisions, because as long as, like Bill said, you have the company, your company best interest at heart, you have to make tough decisions, and people will have to, I'm not saying they agree with them, but they're going to have to understand and get over it. But you have to do something. You can't just sit back and let this affect you and just kind of, move with what's affecting you, have some effect on it yourself.
I'm happy you said that. That's refreshing.
And I'll add on to that too, on the serious part of me that's not salesy. I mean, what Brett just said it's similar to what I saw Robert Herjavec, the shark, who was on CNBC earlier, and he said that too. He said what Brett said, that you as a business owner right now, you have to do whatever it takes to preserve your business. And you're going to make decisions that you're going to be judged for, period. If you have to let people go, there will always be some people that think you did that out of selfishness. But this is, he referred to it as hell. This is hell right now. It has come, and you're going to have to protect this thing that you've built, whatever it takes, because as important as every job is, and as like gut wrenching as it is to let even one person go, as the entrepreneur, this is your life. This is what you've built your entire life. And that's not to minimize the actual job that people are doing when they're working for you, but this is everything to you as an entrepreneur, and you have to do whatever it takes to preserve it.
Wow. Yeah, that's well said. And I completely agree with that. I think the worst thing somebody can take in a position in business as an employee or whatnot is no action. It's
Right.
just take some type of action. And I think you both have put it really well. And Brett, when you said, yeah, you're going to make some mistakes. And just to clarify to everybody, he said offensive, not offensive. That accent got in the way a little bit.
We can be that. We can be that too sometimes.
I definitely can. The other thing I would add too is there's a lot of programs out there that everyone's aware of, and don't be afraid to take advantage of them. And even if the form is 10 pages long, fill out the form. Right. And don't be lazy, and don't think you're not going to qualify. And there's even programs like work-share programs out there that can help your employees if you have to cut hours. And there's a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of the requirements have been relaxed during this time. And you should be trying to save jobs. We are. I'll tell you that. Like, we don't want to lose anybody. We have a good team in place. So, do your research. You have time to do it, and take advantage of all the programs that are out there. And if you're unclear about something, find somebody who is, whether it's your accountant or a business mentor or someone in a peer group.
Like Digital Masterminds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our group. There you go.
Yeah, find somebody that kind of can talk to you about some of the stuff that's going on, because like Bill said, you got to do whatever it takes. And luckily for small businesses, there are programs available, but you just have to go get it. They're not going to come banging at your door.
So just to put a little plug out there, we're the Digital Mastermind group. We've been meeting every other week just to talk about coronavirus, the COVID processes, SBA loans. We've been doing webinars of the financial side of it, what paperwork you need to have prepped. I mean, it's been really great creating this group where we're all in it together, and we have a support group. It's been awesome.
Yeah, yesterday we had a CPA on who's also become essentially the de facto SBA or a loan expert in this space. So it was insane the amount of information that he was giving that was just super helpful based on the EIDL versus the PPL, and what you need to do, what needs to be collateralized, what doesn't, how fast it's potentially going to move, when they're going to release money, what types of banks to go with. It was really fruitful.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so I second that. All right, gentlemen. I thank you so much for being on the show, man. It was a pleasure. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, Dave, how do you think that went?
That was pretty solid. I mean, it was definitely great to get a perspective of someone that's been through it all, seen it all.
That had their victory garden.
Yeah. I mean, Bill was the sales guy, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Bill, he's feisty. I like him. And it was funny when they first
feisty.
When they first got on, I would have thought it was opposite. I would have thought Bill was the operational guy and Brett was the sales guy.
No. I think they're pretty well matched, and I think there's probably a blend, a little Venn diagram crossover between the two.
Sure.
They both can sell. One's just better at it than the other. They both could operate. One's just better at it than the other. So I think that makes a well-rounded partnership.
Well, you and Bill were going back and forth on sales stuff. I kind of tuned out there for a little bit. I'm like, sales.
Did you? Oh man, I was getting turned on. Yeah,
I could tell.
I love that stuff. Nothing like sales porn. Yeah, no, it's just there's a lot of great information, and I love the fact that the way that he built out his team. And I love somebody that does inbound and outbound.
Yeah.
I don't like somebody that's just binary. I think if you're going to be a real marketer and taking just sales, right, which is, marketing, promotions, and, of course, closing and prospecting, you need a really well-rounded approach. And it sounds like that they have one. And I like that they've, like you were mentioning, that they've done this, for 25 plus years, and taking that experience and hearing what their thoughts were on what's going on right now and what they're doing. I think if anybody doesn't listen to that and get a ton of value out of it, I don't know what to do.
True. I mean, but I will be honest. I was getting scared. I'm like, damn, I'm trying to maintain an optimistic approach to all this. This corona, this, shutdown. I'm trying to maintain and be a positive generator of energy out there in the universe. And then I'm listening to him going, damn it, am I wrong? Like, it sounded like it's going to be bad, and it's going to be worse than I thought. I'm still holding out that the media is making it worse than it is, and we're going to get a magic cure.
That is super optimistic.
Magic cure. Doesn't it happen with everything?
A magic cure?
No, like when I say magic cure, I just mean like something out of nowhere that settles the issue.
I think we just adapt to the new normal, and it's I mean, oh man, how do I say this without being callous? There will be like, people die. It's sad. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah. They passed on. Years ago, they used to wear black for an entire year to honor that person. So I think things move faster. This is a virus that's, attacking the planet. It's Darwinism is the way that I look at it, yeah, people are going to lose loved ones. I hope that I don't lose any, and I'm very my heart goes out to those that will lose them. But this is Darwinism. It's going to remove planet or people from the earth, and then businesses. There's Darwinism in that too, and then businesses that aren't healthy, it's going to remove those. I don't know if it's optimism. Granted, I think I'm more on an optimistic side, but definitely than a pessimist. We've talked about realism. I think the reality of this situation is you need to keep moving forward. That's what I took away from them. They're continually applying pressure to the gas pedal, and unlike last week, it's they don't sell, help, and just help the current clients that you have. I do agree with that. I think your focus needs to be on all your current clients. But if there is a way that you can sell into this space, God bless you. Absolutely. Don't not do that, because that's the wrong action to take.
He was talking about, the messaging and it just reminds me of that Christopher Voss, the tactical empathy. He wrote, never settle for never split the difference.
Yep.
So I'm following him on LinkedIn, and I sent this article around, but basically he said have tactical empathy. And, you can still sell, but you have to understand that the person you're selling to might be dealing with some shit.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to relate with that. And if you can't, you're not getting a sale. You're not having them listen to you at all.
But I think that's somebody that's that is how would you put it? Emotionally, disconnected, right? If you're not selling with that type of empathy, you're not a good salesperson anyway to begin with.
But how many people do we know that are probably doing that?
And I think they're going to get washed out. Darwinism is going to take place based on that, and maybe they will never sell again. Granted, there was somebody who worked for a client years ago, and it was as if this person didn't understand what no meant in the best way possible. So when this person would do cold calls, you could curse him out Harry, you're the biggest moron I've ever met, and all that. He's like, on to the next one. And he would just go all day long. He would book appointments. In this scenario, granted, I don't think Harry would be producing any results. I think he would probably generate a lot of negative reviews on Google. But yeah, I agree with the tactical empathy. And I think, taking the positive actions necessary, acknowledging it is a great path forward.
Reminds me of a guy I used to meet in networking events here in town. He'd come up to you and go, hey, my name's John Smith. I sell printers. Just making something up. How can I sell you a printer today? I'd be like, I'm not interested. He goes, all right, thank you, and walks away. Somebody asked him, why do you do that? He's like, if you aren't buying, I'm not wasting my time with you.
Wow, that is a terrible networker.
Yeah, just fly through the room and just identify the people he needs to talk to.
Yeah, there was a guy.
On one of those, I agree with that. I'm like, okay, that's smart. But on the other hand, it's like that person might lead you to 8 other people that might turn into clients. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk to that guy again. I'm going to find another printer guy.
No, because he's a shitbag. I don't want to deal with people like that. He's literally only looking at what's good for him and selling those printers. And now if he's out there doing that, he's probably giving everybody coronavirus because he's shaking more hands.
You're out there listening to this right now. Just good.
Yeah. No, but I think it's a relationship, and looking at that relationship, because you're coming in at the foundation level, and if you don't have the best of intentions, you don't deserve anything, especially somebody's business.
Right. So John, we just wrapped up episode 15.
15.
We just wrapped up the first quarter of production of The Climb, DMG The Climb.
Where's the quarter coming from?
Didn't we really start in January?
Oh, the first quarter. Yeah. Dates. Got it. All right.
Yeah. How do you think it's gone? What have we learned? Let's do a recap show. Or should we book our next episode to just be quarter 1 recap by The Climb?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, quarter 1 recap. I agree. I think we should do that.
All right.
And I'm wondering if we'd edit out our plans. I don't know. Let's leave them in. See if we get some.
No, these are these are Easter eggs at the end of episodes. We should
The
purposely talk about really great things to get people to listen all the way to the end.
Like a gnarly promo code. It was only good for 2 people, and they walked away with a brand new Chrysler minivan.
Right. Or 10% off your hotel booking for the 10 people that are listening for the DMG Summit in September in Dallas, you know?
Speaking of percentages, I definitely negotiated a hell of a lot more than 10%.
I saw that.
There's
Very
some good
impressed.
prices. Yeah,
Yeah.
some good prices.
Coronavirus discount.
That's exactly what that is. It's a coronavirus discount, which has a pretty gnarly cancellation policy.
You know what we should have done for DMG?
What's
Booked it
that?
on a cruise ship. I bet you we could book a conference on a cruise liner right now for like a song and a dance.
Yeah, the attorneys would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know. Can you even book a cruise right now for a later
Yeah.
date?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm good.
Really?
I still get emails.
Yeah, I'm not a cruise person. I've tried it. You know, I'm just
Really?
yeah. I feel like I'm cattle. Just
How'd you
being-
go?
What do you mean?
Like,
Like
you
I
go with
got on the
just-
boat and we went to.
Did
like,
you go with friends? Did you go with family? Did you go?
I've gone with friends and I've gone with some.
So do you do the
ex-girlfriends.
dinner, the special dinners, or do you just eat at the cafeteria?
Special dinners? Yeah.
So how do you feel like a cattle?
What's that? Because I'm on this boat and then I have to be at the special dinner at a specific time. I have to get off the ship at a specific time. When I go on vacation, like I try to immerse myself in the culture. I try to
Sure.
get invited to people's houses for dinner. You know,
What cruise line? Any specific one? or
I
all?
went on Carnival. I went on Royal Caribbean and I think Norwegian.
So I really like Norwegian because it was like a restaurant. The restaurant's open for these 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, come whenever you can within those 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like if you want to go to the steakhouse though, you have to have, be there by 8:45.
Yep.
And I kind of like it. I just love that first of all, these ships are gigantic.
Mhm.
So tons of space. And everything's right there at your fingertips. I mean, if you want to gamble, if you want to eat well, like I just love it. And then I love during the day, go off onto some island or some, and maybe did you do any cruises outside of the Caribbean?
No.
Okay, completely different experience, and you want to do one around the Mediterranean then. Because every morning you're stopped at a different European port, and you just spend all day drinking wine and doing the things that the locals are doing and checking that stuff out. And then yeah, at the end of the night you come back, have your dinner, and go to the casino. But the experience is traveling around Europe without having to do anything.
Okay. Maybe. I just the whole.
Awesome.
I maybe the river cruises. Those look pretty cool.
Okay, they're full of old people though, so you would hate it.
I love all people. You know?
We
all
did
ships
for our honeymoon. We did Holland America around Spain, which was still awesome, but it was still because of the brand. It was full of older people.
Yeah, that's why I just like going. Like if when I've been to Iceland or the multiple times I've been to Europe or even South America, it's just there's no set plan. It's just
Yeah, I know.
you got a car, and then I got some milestones that I want to achieve, and just I have a fantastic time, meet a bunch of people, and experience the culture. That's the most important thing to me. That's why I don't like Vegas. There's no culture.
Oh, I hate Vegas because of that as well.
I feel like going on a cruise ship. There's no culture. It's just me with a bunch of
There isn't, but you get
tourists.
off the boat. That's what I'm saying. It's like when we went to Malaga, Spain, we found this really great. They have all these little shops out on the streets.
Sure.
Very similar to St. Pete, to be honest with you. And we're sitting there drinking wine, and this Dutch couple next to us started talking about Trump because he was running for president. He was, and we just got into this discussion. I'm friends with them on Facebook now. Like they're great people, and it was a ton of fun. We spent all day with them, bullshitting about Malaga, Spain, and stuff. It was awesome.
But you could have you met him off the boat.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I would still meet that same person. I just don't like the boat having to be back at dinner. I'd rather eat at some restaurant, that has a Yelp review or
I
not
might
actually.
not have gone to Malaga, Spain, if it wasn't for that port.
Oh, I'm supposed to go to Spain later this year. Maybe I'll
Really?
meet him and yeah.
Barcelona.
No, I'm not going back to Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona.
Love it. I love Barcelona.
I was there when they were trying to secede. Well, Catalonia was trying to secede. Yeah, I saw like 8-year-old kids smoking cigarettes and cops, everybody in riot gear. It was like a depressed time to go. I loved all the Gaudi stuff. That's fantastic. Big fan of his.
Sure.
But nobody was happy, and I love to go to a place that embraces,
Sure.
a tourist, if you will, or a traveler.
We went to Barcelona like at the height of the revolution or whatever you want to call it. And we went out drinking all day. We came back, passed out in the room. And I wake up to all this noise, and it's just like they're rioting outside. And we're staying right there on, Bramba, the main drag there in Barcelona,
Sure.
and just this incredible noise. And I was like, oh shit, babe, we got to go see this. This is a revolution. It's happening. So we get down there and we're kind of staying on the outskirts and we go all the way down to the main area. And there's guys up on light posts and everything and going nuts. And cops are trying to like keep people in line. And finally we found out Barcelona just beat Madrid in soccer.
Yeah. See, that's that you saw a celebration, right? Yeah.
I was like, here comes the revolution.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a really happy time for them. Everybody's like pumped, right? Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. My experience wasn't. And then I got an argument with some French school teacher going up to, I think it's Le Monde or whatever, you know, this thing. It was just all around not a good trip. The only two bad vacations I've ever had is that one and Jamaica. Two places. I will go back to Spain, but I don't plan on going to Barcelona. Yeah.
What was bad about Jamaica?
It was just not like it was a resort. There were, I couldn't really get into the culture. They're saying areas are unsafe.
Yeah.
It's just like
I feel like Jamaica was 40 years ago, and people, it hasn't changed much. So you don't get. I want an upgraded experience, and I feel like Jamaica's just, that's what our parents went to.
Yeah, actually, my dad spent a lot of time in Jamaica. No, but I love Europe. I like France. I love France. South France, North France, Central France. If the taxes weren't so high, I'd potentially retire there. Love France. Yeah, and all of Europe. There's tons of culture. That's what I want.
I love it. Yeah, that's what. So
Galapagos. The Galapagos even has culture. I went down there. That was fantastic. Swam with penguins and sea lions.
I took a 3-day cruise from Barcelona to Rome, and I had a stop in Sicily, I think.
Okay.
And God, it was just awesome. It was just great.
In Sicily? Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Sicily. I've been to Italy. That was a fantastic.
Or no, wait, Napoli. Wherever they make that
Naples.
awesome pizza.
Naples. Yeah. Yeah. So how long are you there for when you go on the cruise, though?
Oh, well, for those just a day.
That's what I'm saying. So I was in Barcelona for a week and a half.
Right.
So
that's too much.
But no, like if you really want to get, like, if you go to Paris, you're there for a day. Like that, you're not experiencing Paris. You know what I mean?
You can also mix it up. So how I did the trip in Italy, when we went to Italy, we went to Barcelona for 2 days, got on a cruise ship for 3 days with one stop in Naples, got off at Rome, stayed there in Rome for a night. We toured all the famous shit in 1 day, which was plenty enough for me. Then we took a train down to the Amalfi Coast, stayed there for, I think, 5 nights, and then went over to like Capri, and then went to Ireland and stayed there a night. Like, it's not all cruise, but I definitely like making a cruise part of it, because that part of it is there's no energy. You don't have to plan anything. You can actually just do whatever the fuck you want. So I don't know, I love it.
No, and I can appreciate that. I think we just have different, ways we travel. Because I typically will go to like a main hub, and then I do one of two things, right? I either do the day trips outside of that hub, like I did in Barcelona, right? Or I do something like when I went to the south of France, where and did the same thing in Italy. Like Italy, flew into Venice, traveled all the way down, visiting all these towns over a 2.5 week period, and then I flew out of Florence, Italy, flew into wherever the French Connection takes place. I can't remember the name of the city. I feel kind of embarrassed now. And then left out of Nice, zigzagging and driving all up the coast.
Yeah.
I've been to Iceland twice, right? So Iceland, went to Reykjavik and then did day trips. I liked it so much. I was like, all right, and then we're going to go back and do the Ring Road. But yeah.
So there's a Scandinavian cruise that's like 12, 14 days that just hits, St. Petersburg, all the cities. And
I'd love to go to Russia, because everything in Russia is tougher. Like no matter what you say, if you say, like, oh yeah, I went to a library once in Russia,
right?
Like it adds a whole element of like, oh wow.
You could create like a travel blog, St. Pete to St. Pete.
Yeah, I think they were sister cities or something. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the history of my town, but all right, man. I think we've definitely we've talked about what we're looking forward to after this. Recession's over, vacations, that's for sure.
I think week 3. This is basically week 3 of the shutdown, right? Everyone's pretty much bottled up. Man, I am not looking for, and everyone just was basically told this is going to go on the entire month of April. There is going to be some high-strung, like frustrated as fuck people over the next month. It is going to be a little bit like The Purge.
I agree to some extent. Yeah. And I think, well, yeah, I agree. I go to the gym typically 3 to 4 times per week. Can't go to the gym right now. So I'm having
Right.
to augment and work out at home. And I go to a gym where they tell me what to do. So I don't have to think because I think all
Orange
day
Theory?
for a living. What's that?
Orange Theory?
No, it's similar. I hate treadmills, so I won't do that. It's a local gym here called Mission Fitness, and it's essentially HIIT training, high intensity
Okay.
interval training.
Cool.
But yeah, so I go in, they're like, all right, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do, and then all right, everybody's like, following this system or class that they have. Like now I'm at home, I got a couple of dumbbells. It's like so pathetic to
Right.
watch me do. My wife's in training to be a yoga instructor, so she had me do one of her yoga lessons, which is cool. I got my
Yeah.
my ons and off about yoga, but yeah, so all those people, all that pent up energy, yeah, I agree. It's people are not happy at all right now. So whether it's an economic depression or just a societal one, yeah, things suck, and I want it to end.
Yeah.
And on that happy note,
Yeah.
everybody, thank you so much for listening. I guess these are what Dave's calling our Easter eggs, or our end of the show. So if you lasted this long, send me an email, and there'll be some gift for you. I don't even know what it is, but that only lasts till April 30th, because get
Love
some
it.
April 30th, 2020. Because if I get some email, 2 years from now, I'm not even gonna know what the hell to do with it. All right, everybody, thank you so much, and I will see you real soon, my friend. Thanks.